Welcome. Thank you for attending today. I'm here today with Michigan State Police Detective Lieutenant, First Lieutenant Christensen, along with my Deputy Chief and Sergeant Rabbit. Last night, following this particular incident, there was a felonious assault in Bedford Township, and there was a second shooting also in the city. Capped off a busy night. I'm proud of this team and the level of professionalism that they show daily while the rest of us sleep peacefully at night. I'm pretty impressed with the work that they have to do. This press conference is to share what we currently know and how we're handling it right now. But it's by no means the final say. I want to be very clear on that. So let's get on with it. In summary, just after midnight this morning, a vehicle passenger, a black male, age 18, suffered non-life-threatening injuries after a Battle Creek police officer shot them during a traffic stop. The vehicle driver, a black male, age 21, was also taken in custody pending charges. Here are the details. 12:13 a.m., an officer stopped a vehicle for numerous traffic violations on Columbia near La Vista Avenue. Those observations included erratic driving, stopping and backing up in the middle of the road, and an illegal turn. The officer suspected the driver was under the influence at the time. As the officer spoke to the driver outside the vehicle, who was cooperating, a second officer arrived on scene and approached the vehicle's passenger side. This is routine. The second officer observed a gun in the passenger's waistband, and then immediately commanded the passenger to put their hands up and stated that they would remove the gun safely. The passenger initially followed that second officer's commands. As the second officer reached in the vehicle for the gun that was in the waistband, the passenger began to suddenly resist, leaned forward, extended his arm, and reached for what was later determined to be a second gun on the floorboard of the vehicle, near his legs. The officer reacted quickly, responding with firing his duty weapon, striking the passenger. The scene became chaotic rapidly. Additional officers were called in to support the arrest effort. Currently, we believe there were only 2 shots fired in this incident. There were no other occupants in the vehicle. Life Care Ambulance was immediately dispatched and transported the passenger to the hospital for non-life-threatening injuries. The 2 officers and the vehicle driver were not injured. The guns, we have both of them. One is a Kel-Tec 9mm fully loaded handgun reported stolen out of Blackman Township in 2015. That was the weapon found and located by the officer in the waistband of the passenger. Also, a Titan 25 caliber semi-automatic fully loaded weapon was discovered on the floorboard. It was registered in 1992 out of Jackson. However, we know that the registered owner was born in 1913. A little more work by ATF and MSP are required to determine the legality of that weapon. Here are the charges and the history. The driver is going to be charged with felony CCW, the passenger felony CCW, and R&O, that's resisting and obstructing. The history. The driver has a district court probation for retail fraud, misdemeanor out of Jackson, and passed R&O charges. The passenger is on felony probation out of Jackson with pending felony narcotics charges out of Jackson. The officers that responded initially. The original officer is a white male. He's been with the department for 3 years. He's a prior service employee. He's got 7 years in law enforcement. The second officer involved is a white male. He's been with the department for 2.5 years. He's got a total of 6 years of experience. The investigation. We have asked Michigan State Police to investigate the incident, which is standard procedure, and we will work fully and cooperate with them throughout the entire investigation. The Department of Internal Affairs and Professional Standards will review the officer's actions on contact and conduct their internal review, which is also standard procedure. Both of these investigations will happen consecutively. I have placed both officers involved on paid administrative leave pending the investigative outcome, which is also standard procedure. We currently do have possession of the Chevrolet Cruze, the vehicle, which is not registered to either passenger or driver. We believe it may be registered to a family member, and that is currently being reviewed by our forensics team. Our in-car law enforcement video system, there are only 2 vehicle-mounted camera systems on scene initially. It's only been in the last few hours we've been able to access those systems administratively, and they're under review. And as I said, we're constantly developing new and more detailed information. That video will be turned over to MSP. Any further formal statements or releases will be in concurrence with our MSP investigative team. That concludes my formal statements. I'll take any questions that you might have. Trace.
Hometowns are both from Jackson?
Currently, we believe the passenger may have had past residency here, but also it appears as if he's living in Jackson, and the driver also out of Jackson.
Can you determine why they were here?
Not yet.
Do we have names yet, or do we have to wait till arraignment?
We're going to wait till arraignment. That is correct. We do have names, though.
Would body cameras be helpful in this situation, knowing, you have dash cams, but I know the department has requested body cameras. Do you think that could have been helpful if your department had that?
Incredibly helpful, and I anticipated the question. As you know, tonight we will be voting in our commission meeting to get the product that we've been wanting to get for some time now after a lot of research. And I think if we had had that system in play, for example, administratively trying to recover the footage as we've had to do today would have been a much easier thing to do. It would have been almost immediate. And so there are just a few benefits of the newer system that we're looking at. And yes, we would have had a lot more information, a lot more detail, and a lot more clarity almost instantaneously. And that alone would have helped us out.
Chief, was the passenger still seated in the car when this thing kind of went?
That's right. The driver was out of the vehicle cooperating.
Okay.
And really things were going well. Nearly 80 weapons have been seized year to date, just like this, without incident. Nearly 80.
This year?
This year, that's right. And that's about an average number every single year. And it's not unusual where the interaction goes peacefully, if you can believe it or not, where officers are often retrieving illegal weapons from folks who shouldn't have them, at least 80 times a year. You just never know when something's going to go awry. And that's exactly how this started out. Very cooperative, very peaceful, and then suddenly things just went awry very rapidly.
Excuse me. So it's your understanding the passenger's in the seat with his hands up, the gun has been taken from him and placed on top of the car?
The officer is attempting to do just that, attempting to reach in and to grab the weapon. And at that point, the passenger our understanding is, the passenger leaned forward, pinching off access to the weapon, and then directed the officer's attention towards the floorboard where a second weapon was seen. And that's what rapidly ramped up the scene at that moment.
Sorry about that.
I got you, Tim. Go ahead, Sam.
Can you give us an idea of the training that goes into a situation like that? It's obviously a very reactionary split-second decision that the officer has to act on when he's firing. Is he trained to shoot any particular area on the person, or just kind of what goes into a stressful situation that you're trained for?
Yeah, thank you, Sam. These things turn on a dime. They become violent, they become chaotic, they become uncertain. And one moment you think you've got someone that's cooperating with you, which is the ideal, certainly the way we want it to happen. Then there's other moments though when it rapidly changes and you have to react in seconds. I mean, you observe, and then you act, you decide, and then you assess, and you do it all within milliseconds. And no, officers are not trained to specifically place a round on a specific location. That's a fine motor skill that's nearly impossible to train, right? Frankly, we're trained, we're developed, we're raised, we're born with the innate ability to protect ourselves, right? But officers, we have to train them to work through that natural-born instinct to move to protection, and they have to act, and they have to act professionally. And so far from what I'm seeing, they certainly acted with the tools they had, the situation they were provided, professionally. Go ahead, Tim.
Chief, how many times was the passenger shot, and did both bullets land?
Right now, with 2 shots fired is what we know, and we know that because of the brass casings recovered. We also know that the passenger was shot twice. Again, non-life-threatening. Looks like once in the shoulder and once in the arm. We do have some damage in the vehicle itself off of a door frame, and so the question now is that a deflection wound? We know one's nearly a contact wound, and the other may be a deflection wound. Again, speculation at this time. It's all under review.
Chief, did the officers arrive in separate vehicles?
That's correct. Yeah.
And you gave the description of how long they'd been here. The second officer is the one that fired?
That's right. The backup officer is the one that was involved in the shooting.
Where exactly were they pulled over? Was it on Columbia or was it in a parking lot? There was some kind of, we weren't 100% sure where exactly it happened.
Yeah, it looks like it happened right on La Vista at the intersection near Columbia.
So was it in the street or actually in like a parking lot?
It looks like it was in the parking lot in the shopping center. But
Okay.
again, we're looking at different camera angles, and some of that fidelity we're trying to determine ourselves. Which, to your point earlier about the new camera system, it will give us that specific vehicle location necessary.
And what is the camera system you guys are looking to get?
It's a body-worn system by utility, and again, certainly more on that tonight. I don't want to get in front of our commission, but this has been almost a 4-year project.
Are there surveillance cameras in the area? You said it was near a shopping center.
Currently, the entire scene is being reviewed, and we're trying to see what level of security cameras, CCTV cameras, were in the area. Oftentimes, there's a lot of cameras, right? It's a matter of whether they're recording and do we have access to recording. That's what we're working on right now. Good question. Yes, sir.
Do we know how long the second officer was on scene, and how long the officer one pulls him over, and how long before the second officer arrives, and how long between the shots being fired and his arrival on the scene?
So I can give you an approximate. I don't have that level of fidelity and a timeline down just yet, but here's what I can tell you. It appears based on video timeline, from what limited video footage that I've seen. It looked like the initial officer had made contact, and again, they were cooperating. Had been on scene for just about a minute, perhaps even 2 from the point of the traffic stop being initiated, and then about 2-3 minutes into that contact, the backup officer arrived and made contact with the passenger. Does that answer your question? Okay. Jim?
Chief, have they had blood tests to see if they were intoxicated or perhaps under the influence of other drugs?
I'm sure blood has been drawn, but we haven't gotten to that point, nor have we developed a search warrant to pull it just yet.
Had the second officer pulled out his weapon as the encounter began, or did it?
No, as I shared with you earlier, it was a relatively peaceful, cooperative stop done by these officers many times before. It was very calm, very collected, and frankly, we look forward to sharing the video as soon as we can pull it all, which is really right now the harder part for us. And once we get it together, we'll be able to demonstrate that everything was going just fine, and things just took an ugly, unfortunate turn.
Will you be releasing the names of the officers that are on the administrative leave?
We will in time. That's right.
And do you know, do you have any more details on the condition of that passenger?
Currently stable condition right now, still in the hospital, and again, non-life-threatening.
Bronson?
Yes.
I have one, but I don't.
That's okay. I might not have had the answer.
Do you have any history with these 2 guys in this county?
We do. If I recall correctly, I don't believe we had much history at all with the passenger. The driver we were familiar with.
Chief, is the outcome of non-life-threatening injuries a relief in this situation, given, anytime you have shots fired, you obviously hope that doesn't lead to somebody dying, and that didn't happen in this case, but it could have.
Well, of course it could have. I mean, that's just the reality and the ugliness that we have to deal with every single day. And frankly, it's the ugliness that officers have to live with every single day. But yes, it is fortunate. Why? Because it adds a voice to the whole movement towards justice. I mean, clearly laws were broken, so justice has to be served, and at least now all parties involved have a voice if they choose to have one, and that's important.
Have you sent reports to the prosecutors yet?
No, not yet. Again, this thing is, what are we looking at? Just under 12 hours old. Over 12 hours old. Just developing, but yes, prosecutors aware. We received a call early this morning, and they're waiting the police report.
But it'll be your report on submitting the charges and then
That's right.
state police will.
It'll be our original report that moves them towards arraignment and the arrest, and then the actual shooting itself, we've reached out to our state police partners to review that, which is, again, something that we do routinely.
Anticipation of the timeline on the investigation?
Unknown right now.
He's already got a couple.
Yeah. Any other questions for me? Are there any questions for MSP, Lieutenant Christensen?
How many officer-involved shootings have you guys investigated this year?
This year,
Any idea?
well, we investigate shootings not just here, but within Southwest Michigan, and we may go out beyond Southwest Michigan, depending on where it occurs. But I believe off the top of my head, I'm going to say 5 this year.
And it's been 3 in this county, is that right?
Yes, this will be the 3rd. I'm sorry, this will be the 4th.
2 in Marshall Drive.
Yeah,
2 involved this department, 1 in Marshall.
the one up here off Skyline,
Right.
and then this one.
And what's the 4th one?
This is the 4th one. Yeah.
I lost one.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we're keeping our MS team busy. Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right. Hearing none, that concludes my statements. Thanks for being here.